Nobody, and I mean nobody, was ready for this. The moment the story broke, a hush fell over living rooms, group chats, and late-night feeds alike. The stakes were not small. They were seismic. Kirk's name had been tied to rumors before, but this time the whispers arrived with proof. A pattern of betrayals stitched through private messages and late-night meetings. The first image that landed online made people stop scrolling. It was not tabloid speculation. It felt like a door being forced open. For Rasheeda, the glare turned personal. What began as suspicion hardened into a public wound. She did not react at once. There was a silence that felt like a strategy. She watched the world rearrange itself around a rumor that had teeth. Then a new twist appeared. Someone close to the inner circle began to speak. An unfamiliar figure showed up in photos beside Rasheeda. A calm presence, a quiet smile, and an energy that suggested escape rather than surrender. This was not the predictable rebound. This looked intentional. The narrative split. One side saw a woman betrayed. The other saw a woman finding power. Social feeds split like a fault line. Clips of incredulous friends, split-screen reactions, and tearful voice notes saturated timelines. The music of scandal played on loop. But scandal is never only scandal. It's a story about choices, alliances, and reckoning. The images, the messages, the timing, all of it demanded answers. Tonight we will unpack a chain of small choices, leaked screenshots and witness accounts that, when stitched together, reveal not just infidelity, but a deliberate shift in power and purpose and consequence. To know that answer, we must trace the steps that led here. Before chaos took center stage, there was history. Years of complicated love, fragile trust, and public battles that rarely stayed private. To understand why this moment hit so deeply, we need to revisit the foundation that made viewers believe in them in the first place. A relationship born in ambition, tested in fame, and stretched by pressure that only cameras and contracts can magnify. Kirk and Rasheeda were once the blueprint. A couple that navigated music, business, and reality TV storms with a blend of hustle and polished calm. Their marriage was not just a romance. It was a brand. When people spoke about them, they used words like solid, loyal, and ride or die. They built a narrative around unity, a love that could survive scandal and come back stronger. Even critics admired their resilience. But loyalty in public is not always loyalty in private. As the years passed, viewers watched cracks deepen. On-screen confessions, behind-the-scenes whispers, and emotional breakdowns revealed something darker beneath the glossy highlight reels. A moment here, a mistake there, and suddenly, the trust that once held everything together began to feel fragile. The thing about reality TV is simple. Once a vulnerability enters the frame, the world never forgets. Fans started paying attention to every look, every word, every quiet pause between them. They began reading silence as confession and politeness as armor. The marriage shifted from inspiration to curiosity. People wondered not, are they okay? But when will everything break again? And then, just when it seemed they had weathered the worst, life introduced a new test. Not loud, not messy at first, but subtle and persistent. Conversations grew shorter. Appearances felt strained. Something unseen shaped their distance. Friends noticed, so did fans. And in the shadows of doubt, a new presence lingered. Soft-spoken, supportive, patient. Someone who didn't take but offered comfort where anger once lived. Someone who would become the catalyst no one saw coming, pushing a private fracture toward a public explosion. Because every storm begins with a cloud. And this one was already gathering when the world turned to watch what would happen next. It happened quietly at first. A notification, a whisper, a DM that wasn't meant to be seen. But secrets rarely stay silent, especially in a world where screenshots travel faster than apologies. One night, when tensions already felt sharp and tired, Rasheeda picked up a phone she hadn't planned to touch. A message preview glowed. A name she didn't recognize. A line that felt like a bruise forming before impact. The screen unlocked. Suddenly, the room felt smaller, a thread of late-night messages. Compliments typed too freely. Plans disguised as business. Photos exchanged, blurred edges hinting at more than work. The timestamps told their own truth. Stolen hours, private jokes, emotional intimacy stretched across weeks. It was not the first betrayal she'd ever felt, but it was the one that felt final. The one that made breathing heavy, that sent her heart racing not from heartbreak, but clarity. She wasn't just hurt, she was done. Silence followed. No confrontation. No dramatic scream and throw moment. Rasheeda placed the phone down gently, almost too calmly, as if she already knew screaming wasn't power. Walking away was. But the universe rarely lets endings stay contained. Within 48 hours, a mutual friend slipped. "Are y'all good?" they asked, voice shaky. Word traveled. Someone tried to protect the truth. Someone else passed it on. Soon, whispers evolved into confirmations, and confirmations into evidence. Screenshots leaked. Audio notes surfaced. Kirk laughing softly, telling someone, "She's focused on her work. She won't notice." The cruelty wasn't in the cheat, but in the confidence. And somewhere in that storm, a spark lit a fuse on the other side. The new man, the one whose presence once felt harmless, almost background, stepped forward not with arrogance, but quiet support. A hand on her shoulder. A message of strength. Not "leave him," but "you deserve peace." That moment changed everything. Not because she sought attention, but because she finally stopped hiding pain that wasn't hers to carry. A single glance in a public doorway, her eyes determined, his posture protective, became the image the internet wasn't ready for. And while the world gasped and speculated, another force prepared to erupt online, not rumors this time, but receipts waiting to hit the timeline like a match near gasoline, forcing everyone to choose which truth they believed before the storm reached full force. The internet didn't walk, it ran. Within hours, screenshots circulated across fan pages, gossip accounts, and group chats buzzing like live wires. The tone wasn't just shock. It was a collective exhale from people who had long suspected another storm was coming. Memes popped up before clarity did. Side-by-side reactions comparing loyalty vows from old reunion clips to the blunt reality leaking across feeds now. Comments flooded timelines like a tidal wave. Some defended Kirk, calling the screenshots fake, edited, or context taken. Others weren't buying it for a second. Longtime viewers, hurt for Rasheeda yet strangely unsurprised, quoted her past strength like scripture. A real queen never breaks. Fans stitched clips of Rasheeda's earlier confessions, her tears, her quiet resolve, overlaying them with captions, "You never deserved this." But then a new thread began unraveling. The soft-spoken man who had appeared beside her, once dismissed as a stylist or a friend, became the subject of a viral hunt. "Who is he?" users demanded. "How long has he been in the picture?" Some cheered for her glow-up. Others whispered revenge. A TikTok clip with nearly 1 million views declared, "This is the calm before Sis serves her power back." Meanwhile, Kirk stayed silent. Too silent. Fans watched his social pages freeze, comments locked, updates stopped. Silence can feel like guilt in the digital age, and the stillness around him only amplified suspicion. On the other hand, Rasheeda didn't post sadness, rage, or even a cryptic quote. She posted a picture, simple, clean, elegant, her eyes steady, her posture poised. The new man wasn't in the frame, but his presence was felt, like a shadow of reassurance behind her strength. Debates turned into digital courtroom trials. Reaction channels streamed live breakdowns. Old clips resurfaced. Every past misstep replayed like evidence stacked on a prosecutor's desk. And just as the conversation threatened to tilt toward sympathy fatigue, a new account, anonymous, unverified, and chillingly confident, chimed in with a promise. "If you think this is the whole story, wait until tomorrow." Tomorrow arrived faster than anyone expected, and when it did, the timeline didn't just shake. It erupted with proof no one could ignore. Morning hit like a hammer. No warm-up, no hesitation. the internet woke up to chaos. At exactly 8:14 a.m., 3 screenshots appeared on the anonymous account that had teased the reveal. They weren't blurry. They weren't vague. They were time-stamped, geotagged, and painfully specific. Kirk's name at the top, a heart emoji, a late-night pull-up I miss you, a reply that didn't hide affection. Within minutes, more followed. Voice notes, short, clipped, careless. Kirk's voice, unmistakable, saying, "She busy building her brand. I need someone who actually sees me." A sentence so loaded you could feel the collective gasp across timelines. A man not just cheating, but blaming the woman who spent years holding him up for his choices. He sounded relaxed, almost proud, unaware that one day these words would be played on loop like a courtroom confession. Then came the footage, a grainy restaurant clip. Kirk leaning in too close, whispering, laughing. His hand brushing someone else's arm in the way partners immediately recognize as intimacy, not coincidence. Not staged. Not deniable. People slowed the video frame by frame, analyzing body language like forensic experts. And then the bomb that changed everything. A text exchange between 2 mutual friends discussing the situation weeks before the leak. One message read, "Rasheeda's gonna find out, and when she does, she won't cry, she'll move smarter." Another, "He doesn't even see who's waiting in the wings for her." That wasn't rumor anymore. That was confirmation. Someone had known. Someone had watched it unfold. But the twist was still coming. A final slide appeared. A blurry but emotional shot. Rasheeda seated beside the mysterious man, not touching, not flaunting, just present. Their heads leaned toward one another in quiet conversation. His hand not on her but near her, a protective calm waiting for her choice. No cheating. No scandal. Just support in the moment she discovered everything. That image alone rewired the narrative from revenge to rebirth. Fans didn't call him a rebound. They called him peace. As reactions exploded, hashtags trended. Our stand with Rasheeda. Know your worth. Our silent strength. Influencers weighed in. Relationship therapists stitched breakdowns. Even skeptics fell silent as evidence piled higher than excuses. But behind the digital noise, something even more powerful shifted. Loyalties, reputations, and the balance of sympathy. The world wasn't waiting for Kirk's explanation anymore. They were watching Rasheeda, and the man quietly standing beside her, and wondering what power looks like when hurt turns into evolution. And while the internet picked sides louder than ever, real life started shifting behind the scenes, setting the stage for a power dynamic no one saw coming next. For the first time in a long time, the story was no longer about betrayal. It was about ascension. Something had changed, and everyone felt it. When scandal hits, the cheated partner usually becomes the victim. But Rasheeda didn't look like a victim. She looked composed, focused, unbothered in the way only someone who already made peace with the truth can be. The internet didn't rally out of pity. It rallied out of admiration. Fans posted clips of her past strength, framing her as a woman who carried love, loyalty, and business on her back for years. Comment sections turned into empowerment threads. What once felt like heartbreak now had the tone of a comeback. "She's not breaking," one comment read. "She's blooming." Meanwhile, Kirk's silence, once perceived as strategy, started to feel like weakness. The more he withdrew, the louder the narrative grew without him. Every hour he remained quiet, the receipts hardened. His defenders struggled to find footing. "Let him explain," they tried to argue. But screenshots don't wait, and video clips don't negotiate. Sympathy didn't just shift, it evaporated. And the quiet man by Rasheeda's side? His presence became symbolic. He didn't speak publicly. He didn't post subliminals. He didn't seek credit. That silence held weight. It felt intentional, respectful. He wasn't there to replace a husband. He was there to restore a woman's peace. Even those cautious of the narrative found themselves saying, "At least she's being supported." Suddenly the conversation wasn't, "How could Kirk do this again?" It became, what will Rasheeda do next? A woman once defined by loyalty now stood at the edge of a different identity, one shaped not by endurance, but by self-respect. The world leaned in, not to watch her fall, but to watch her decide her next chapter. And as whispers turned into encouragement and encouragement into roar, the industry began preparing for a shift of its own. Because when the public changes allegiance, brands, media, and reputations follow swiftly, with consequences and alliances reshaped under the spotlight. When public sentiment changes, the industry listens, not out of compassion, but out of calculation. The moment hashtag siding with Rasheeda trended across platforms, corporate phone calls began. Brand partners who once stayed neutral suddenly posted subtle messages about respect, women empowerment, and choosing yourself. Not once did they say her name, but everyone knew who they were speaking to. Blog outlets ran back-to-back features, digging through history and resurfacing old interviews. Headlines shifted tone from neutral reporting to moral positioning. Rasheeda deserves better. Strength after betrayal, and from loyalty to legacy. Meanwhile, the tone toward Kirk grew colder. His absence from the narrative didn't protect him, it magnified suspicion. Editors began rewriting his character arc in real time, changing him from complicated husband to repeated offender with a pattern the public could no longer excuse. PR strategists on his side scrambled behind the scenes. Calls were made, statements drafted, crisis consultants pulled into emergency Zoom meetings. But how do you defend a man when the evidence speaks louder than any apology could? Silence may be golden, but here, silence felt guilty. Issue something soon? One anonymous PR professional allegedly leaked. He's losing the story. Rasheeda, however, didn't chase the spotlight. Instead, she made one strategic move. She posted a soft, minimal photo of herself with a caption that read simply, "Healing isn't quiet, it's intentional." There was no mention of him, no call-out, just presence. And in the influencer economy, presence is power. Entertainment insiders noted the shift. Talk shows prepared segments. Panelists rehearsed sympathetic tones. Even producers whispered about how this era for her could redefine not just her image, but her career trajectory. So while Kirk's team debated damage control, the culture machine already made its choice, elevating Rasheeda into a symbol, not just of survival, but self-revolution. And as public momentum continued, deeper layers of the story began surfacing, revealing emotions not yet seen under the glossy public veneer, but soon to be felt in a far quieter, human way. Behind every trending hashtag and polished photo lies a heart wrestling with real pain. Off camera, away from applause and opinion, Rasheeda faced a quieter storm, the kind that doesn't shout, but sinks into the bones. Betrayal isn't just a moment. It's a memory that returns in echoes. A laugh shared that now feels tainted. A promise remembered that now feels heavy. Love doesn't disappear the moment trust breaks. It lingers, confusing grief with loyalty, strength with silence. Those close to her described a calm that wasn't numbness, but resolve. Nights where she sat in stillness, processing not the scandal, but the years, the sacrifices, the belief she poured into a marriage she once carried like legacy. And yet, woven through the sadness was something startling: relief. Not for the pain, but for the truth. A truth that finally freed her from holding together what wasn't holding her anymore. The man quietly supporting her didn't rush her healing. He didn't step forward as replacement or savior. He offered space, presence without pressure, understanding without expectation. Sometimes the strongest comfort is simply someone who doesn't demand answers before you're ready to give them. Meanwhile, Kirk's name floated through her thoughts not with anger, but resignation. Disappointment always cuts deeper than rage. She didn't want revenge. She wanted peace. And peace, for the first time, felt possible without him. Healing isn't linear. Some days she rose steady. Other days, doubt sat heavy. Was walking away failure? Was staying loyalty or self-betrayal? Those questions don't trend, but they haunt. Yet day by day, thought by thought, she reclaimed herself, not to prove anything to the world, but to rebuild the woman she deserved to be for herself. And just as her inner resolve solidified, the world prepared for a revelation that would shift not only emotions, but the entire narrative that everyone thought they already understood. The turning point didn't arrive with shouting or tears or a dramatic showdown on camera. It came in the form of truth, unexpected, complicated, and impossible to ignore. Rumors had swirled, speculation had polluted timelines, but this moment was different. It wasn't gossip anymore. It was clarity. Just when the world settled into the story of betrayal and quiet healing, a close friend, someone who had been silent through every leak and whisper, stepped forward with something no one anticipated: the truth behind the man by Rasheeda's side. Not a rebound, not a secret affair, not a plot twist scripted for sympathy, but a figure who had been present long before the scandal. In meetings, during business decisions, offering counsel when cameras weren't rolling and fans weren't watching. A business ally turned emotional anchor, not by design, but by time and trust. This wasn't a story of revenge. It was a story of evolution. A truth surfaced. He had been there, not waiting to replace Kirk, but standing as support when the emotional ground beneath her began to shift months before the world noticed. Screenshots surfaced, not sordid texts, but messages of encouragement, late-night strategy calls, voice notes filled with empowerment, not flirtation. Receipts of loyalty, not lust. It painted a different picture, one where Rasheeda didn't rush into someone's arms. She walked towards someone who respected her, slowly, quietly, cautiously, someone who didn't force himself into her life, but stood steady while pieces of her marriage fell quietly out of place. And then came the revelation that shifted public perception from sympathy to awe. Rasheeda had already separated emotionally long before evidence surfaced. She hadn't chosen another man over her husband. She chose herself, and someone happened to stand beside her while she rediscovered her worth. This wasn't retaliation. It wasn't replacement. It was rebirth. In an unexpected close-circle interview clip that surfaced, a voice, calm, resolute, quoted her. Calm, resolute, quoted her. "I didn't leave because of him. I left because of me. He was just the reminder I deserved softness again." Those words landed like a quiet explosion. They reframed everything. They didn't just free her. They forced the world to rethink the timeline, the narrative, the assumptions. And suddenly, the question changed. It wasn't, is she moving on too fast? But how long was she holding pain alone before she finally chose peace? As the truth settled, the culture prepared for its own reckoning. Because when a woman's narrative shifts from survival to self-sovereignty, the world around her shifts too. The revelation didn't just close mouths, it opened eyes. Suddenly, the narrative wasn't about cheating anymore. It was about emotional liberation, chosen evolution, and the quiet strength of walking away before the world tells you you're allowed to. Audiences began revisiting old clips, but this time they didn't see a woman tolerating disrespect. They saw a woman preparing her exit with grace, dignity, and long-term vision. Women online began sharing their own stories. Threads formed around emotional detachment, slow exits, and the loneliness that comes before freedom. Rasheeda didn't just leave a marriage, one comment read. She left the version of herself that settled. That sentiment hit deeper than gossip ever could. Men weighed in too, some defending Kirk, others acknowledging the larger lesson. Don't take loyalty for granted, a viral post warned. Even the strongest woman eventually chooses herself. Relationship podcasts dissected her emotional timing, praising her refusal to weaponize another man to hurt the first. This wasn't retaliation, it was renaissance. Media outlets shifted tone yet again. What was once scandal morphed into inspiration. Headlines read, "From betrayal to boundaries, the era of soft strength," and "Why leaving quietly is the new power move." The culture didn't just sympathize, it studied, learned and transformed alongside her story. And Kirk? His silence felt heavier now, not defensive but reflective. A recognition, perhaps, that the narrative had outgrown him. His choices sparked the fire, but her response shaped the legacy. Public conversation no longer revolved around who hurt whom, but who healed how. The scandal had shifted into something else, a cultural moment about dignity, timing, and reclaiming emotional agency. And as the world continued analyzing, praising, debating, and learning, one question lingered in the air, setting the stage for a powerful emotional conclusion. In the quiet that followed the cultural uproar, something rare happened: stillness. No dramatic confrontation, no explosive reunion scene, no public war of words. Instead, life moved with intention. Rasheeda didn't announce a breakup, she embodied one. No grand speeches, just a calm shift in how she carried herself. Less pain in her eyes, more softness in her voice. Not the softness of weakness, the softness of a woman finally unclenching her heart. Kirk eventually stepped forward, but not with a denial. A short statement strained and heavy. People grow. People hurt. Sometimes we lose what we thought we'd always have. It wasn't enough to repair anything, but it showed something. Acceptance. Maybe regret. Maybe realization. But the chapter was already turning without him holding the pen. Meanwhile, the man once seen only in the shadows didn't rush into the spotlight. No photo shoots. No captions, no claims. He walked beside her, not ahead, not behind, beside. That was the quiet revolution. A partnership not built on scandal, but on patience and respect. You could see it in her posture, the way she stood like someone protected, not possessed. And yet, there was no label, no dramatic reveal. Their connection wasn't the climax, her peace was. That was the true resolution. Not choosing a new man, choosing a new self. She didn't win through revenge. She won through release. Through choosing healing over hurt, future over history, dignity over drama. A soft victory, but a victory nonetheless. And as cameras rolled on, one truth settled softly but powerfully across the narrative. Sometimes the loudest revenge is simply no longer being affected. But the story doesn't end in silence. It ends with a question, not about Kirk, not about him, but about us. When the dust settles and the world moves to its next headline, what remains isn't the scandal. It's the lesson. This wasn't a story about infidelity. It was a story about rediscovery, about strength that doesn't scream, healing that doesn't ask for applause, and love that isn't measured by how long you stay, but by when you finally choose yourself. Rasheeda didn't seek revenge. She chose redemption. And in doing so, she showed something powerful. That sometimes the most revolutionary act a woman can commit is letting go without bitterness, stepping into peace without performance, and welcoming love only when it feels like safety, not escape. So now we're left with a question. Not for her, not for Kirk, but for every one of us watching this unfold from the comfort of our screens. When loyalty asks you to abandon yourself, will you have the courage to walk toward who you're meant to be instead? Because healing isn't loud, but your future is. Whose side are you on? Comment below and tell us your thoughts.